Perhaps do a sound check to hear how loud it is.
We are here in Pretoria at the Southern African Catholic Bishops' Conference.
Those bags on. And a very good afternoon to you. Good morning, rather. Thank you so much for being here with us. It is the Sacbc press conference at the end of the plenary session that has been taking place here at Kanya House in Pretoria, the headquarters of the Southern African Catholic Bishops' Conference. And so we are coming to you live from Kanya House in Pretoria. And the bishops have been meeting here since last week, Tuesday, from the 21st of January up to today. My name is Shayla, the Communications Officer, and I'm joined by the Sacbc re-elected spokesperson, Cardinal Stephen Brislin, as well as Archbishop Mpako from Pretoria Archdiocese. So I'll now hand over the floor to Cardinal Brislin.
Thank you very much, Sheila. As you said, we have just finished the 2025 January plenary session, which was a very fruitful encounter between the bishops of the Southern African Catholic Bishops' Conference. Unfortunately, I myself couldn't be present for all of the sessions since I was preparing for my installation as Archbishop of Johannesburg, and so I was able only to come into certain sessions during the course of this plenary meeting. But from what I hear and from what the discussions I participated in, it's quite clear that a lot of fruitful work has been done. And this is particularly important as we enter into the Jubilee year of the Holy Year, in which we are trying to renew ourselves and to live the Jubilee in terms of restoration, in terms of renewal, and in terms of really trying to get deep down into the roots of our faith and to live them in their lives. And so I'd like to just read to you the communique that has been prepared, and that will give you a bit of an idea of what has been said and discussed during this plenary session. The Bishops' Conference, of course, consists of three countries of Botswana, Eswatini, and South Africa. In his last opening address as President of the Bishops' Conference, Bishop Stembele Sipuka paid tribute to 5 bishops who have reached retirement age, namely Cardinal Wilfred Napier, Archbishop Emeritus, Buti Tlhagane, Bishop Jan de Groef, Bishop Edward Risi, and Archbishop Frank Lubuasa, and highlighted their significant contributions to the Sacbc and their respective dioceses. Bishop Sipuka also congratulated Cardinal Stephen Brislin for his appointment as Archbishop of the Metropolitan Archdiocese of Johannesburg. Bishop Sipuka outlined the pressing pastoral, administrative, and socio-political challenges facing the Church, such as the declining membership and financial sustainability, the Jubilee year, and the Nicene Creed anniversary. He spoke about the shortage of vocations to the priesthood and religious life. The Apostolic Nuncio to South Africa, Archbishop Henryk Jagodzinski, in his address to the bishops, highlighted the importance of synodality as a spiritual renewal and a call to unity and participation, and to participate in the mission of the Church. During the Sacbc 2025 January plenary session, the bishops, who are from the 3 countries of South Africa, Botswana, and Eswatini, addressed matters concerning Christian formation, liturgy and culture, ongoing formation, ecumenism, and interreligious dialogue, the Jubilee year, the implementation of synodality, Catholic education, the establishment of a Catholic Institute of Higher Education, the G20, and research and digitalization. The Synod on Synodality, in talking of this, the Conference of Bishops approved the establishment of a commission or an office dedicated to the implementation of the Synod and of synodality in the conference area. The SACBC Synod delegate, Archbishop Dabula Mpako, sitting here with me, was elected to head that commission. Furthermore, in terms of the future vision of Catholic higher education, the conference welcomed the decision to extend the Future Vision Task Team and to include representatives from 3 Catholic institutions of higher learning, and again to establish a commission that falls under the Secretariat of the Bishops' Conference. In terms of ecumenism and interreligious dialogue, the conference acknowledged the importance of ongoing formation and education, while acknowledging challenges such as identity preservation and historical tensions. The conference recommends continued focus on formation, dialogue, and practical implementation strategies moving forward. And of course, the new SACBC leadership was elected at the last plenary session. The new Troika was elected, namely myself, Archbishop Zolili Mpambani, and Archbishop Zwacha from the Archdiocese of Durban. And at this plenary, all the department heads and members were elected yesterday during our last full day of the Bishops' Conference. Thank you, Sheila.
Well, thank you so much, Cardinal President. So here with us, we also have Archbishop Mpako. As Cardinal President has already said, he has been elected as the bishop to head the Commission on Synod on Synodality. So I'll hand now to Archbishop Mpako just to tell us a few words about this commission.
Thank you, Sheila. It has been recommended in the final document issued at the end of the Synodal Assembly in Rome, that is a way of taking forward the implementation of the outcomes of the Synod on Synodality. Bishop conferences are encouraged to establish some kind of a body where they are going to provide personnel and resources so that that body will be able to carry forward in the conference area the implementation of the outcomes of the Synod, to supervise, to animate, to encourage, and also to distill some of the documents coming out of the Synod Secretariat in Rome about the implementation of the Synod. So that is going to be really the brief of this commission, which we are still about to fully establish in terms of determining its composition and maybe working out, the vision and some of the steps that will be taken. So that's where it is for now.
Thank you. So we are broadcasting this online, so feel free to put your questions online as well. But for now, we have Lorica, an independent journalist from Pretoria Archdiocese. If you have questions, you may ask so now. All right, so with that said, as mentioned, we are online. You will give a few minutes just for some questions or for some comments from those following us online. We understand that many could not make it due to logistics, but for those that are following online, feel free to ask your questions now. And in the meantime, I'll just ask Cardinal President to make a comment or two with regards to the new Troika, the new administration, and the way forward for the conference.
Thanks very much, Sheila. I'm in the fortunate position of having been president of the conference before, and so I haven't come into this completely new. But for my two vice presidents, Archbishop Mpambani and Archbishop Zwacha, it's a new experience for them. But we had a tremendously good meeting between ourselves yesterday evening, in which we decided that we would have meetings of the Troika to try to formulate a type of vision for the leadership structure of the Bishops' Conference, which obviously we don't do by ourselves, But it's good that we have a bit of an understanding between ourselves so that we can take this into the admin board. Because there are always challenges to try to streamline the discussions of the plenary sessions and indeed of the admin board itself, so that we utilize time as best as we possibly can, and that we are given sufficient time for thinking about issues, for discussing matters of importance for the conference. It's very good, of course, to listen to reports and to hear what is happening in the various different departments, but we've also got to think about the future and think about what sort of progress we can make to serve the people of Southern Africa better, and that our departments can be more effective. And so I think it's very hopeful that as we go forward with the new Troika, we are deeply indebted to the previous Troika, who really brought in a gift of harmony among themselves. They really worked well together as a team. And we said yesterday evening as well with the new Troika, we really tried to emulate that, to try to create that same dynamism between ourselves, a good dynamic, that we work together as a team, and that we are able to, in that way, really present to the conference and to the bishops a united front of leadership, of saying how can we really be as effective as we possibly can for the growth of the church and to serve our people better. So I think that's the new Troika, but I'm very excited as well about the elections that have taken place for the various different departments. Perhaps your listeners don't know the departments. If I could just read the names of the different departments. We have the Department of Christian Formation, Liturgy and Culture. There's a Department for the Formation, Life and Ministry of the Clergy, a Department for Formation, Life and the Apostolate of the Laity, the Department for Catholic Social Action, the Department for Ecumenism and Interreligious Dialogue, and the Department for Finance. Apart from that, there are numerous liaison bishops to different organizations, such as the Rural Education Access Program, such as the CATHCA, which is the health body of the Bishops' Conference. Quite a number. So there's a lot of work that's been done by the Bishops' Conference. Thank you, Sheila.
Well, there's a question here from Lorraine asking about the Synod on Synodality, the implementation of the Synod on Synodality, seeing that we already started the Jubilee year. Archbishop Mpako.
Well, I don't think there should be any clash between the two movements, of the implementation of the outcomes of the Synod and the Jubilee. The Jubilee really is about our renewal, about going back, as Cardinal Clisden said, to the roots of our faith. That cannot really be in any way opposed to implementing the outcomes of the Synod and Synodality. But what needs to happen, as far as the implementation of the Synod is concerned, each diocese has to take up the call, to see how in their particular local church they can begin in first of all conscientizing, especially the clergy, about this and getting people on board. I think that's what is going to be critical at the beginning, to almost enthuse people about this, and then work out then some steps, that can be taken given, the differing local situations. And it might even be necessary that each diocese would have some kind of a team that is charged with that responsibility. For this commission that exists at the level of the conference is not going to be doing the work really for the local churches, the dioceses. We are going to be only animating and being there, to workshop if people need to be workshopped. So that's another something that stands on its own really, that doesn't clash with Jubilee.
There's a question here from by Tandwa from the community of the Palatines, who's congratulating Cardinal Brisland on his appointment. and also asking about your leadership as the new Archbishop of Johannesburg.
Thanks very much. If I could just say a deep sense of gratitude to all the people of Johannesburg who have welcomed me so much. We had a beautiful celebration on Saturday at the installation, and then of course on Sunday taking possession of the Cathedral of Christ the King. And it was really a wonderful and uplifting experience. I do come into Johannesburg without knowing the priests. I know a couple of priests only. So I've got to get to know the priests, and I've got to get to know the parishes and the different organizations, to meet with consecrated persons, to meet with lay delegates, and so on. So my first thing is to open myself to a lot of learning also the type of ethos of Johannesburg, because every local church has its own particular ethos. So I've got to learn the way in which things are done in Johannesburg. I've got to get to know people, and then the aim is together to say, how can we build on the past? How can we build on the tremendous ministry of Archbishop Tlhagale and the previous archbishops of Johannesburg, or bishops of Johannesburg, in order to continue their good work and to make the church really the church that Jesus Christ wants us to be. But we've got to do that together. It's not just my prerogative to decide the course of action. It's a matter of, with the people, the laity, with the priests, the deacons, the religious, we do it together. Thank you, Sheila.
There's a question here from Clement, Archdiocese of Johannesburg, asking about the comments from, or rather the homily of Archbishop Tlhagale, where he spoke about the unity between the different communities, as in the racial divides between communities in the church.
Archbishop Tlhagale, as usual, gave a very brilliant homily and a very challenging homily. And as Clement has said, indeed, he spoke about the issue of really trying to unite people, because the fact of the matter is, as South African society, we remain very segregated, and there are divisions among us. And it is a great concern to us that when we have a big celebration, such as we had in Johannesburg, there's not always a good representation of different peoples. And so I think that is something that we've really got to try to continue to work at. I think we mustn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. The fact of the matter is there has been progress in South Africa, but a lot more still has to be done. I remember one homily of Archbishop Tlhagale some years ago, when he said the thing is that we're polite to each other, but relationships have got to go much, much deeper than simply being polite to each other. There's got to be acceptance of other people. There's got to be a way of getting to know other people and to really be united. Because as Catholics, we are one family. And because we're one family, we must have that sense of common care for each other, common respect for each other, and most importantly, participation. Because you can't be a family unless you're participating in the life of the family. And that applies to the church as well.
Thank you, Cardinal Breslin. Another question here from Dalu Polo of the Southern Cross says, good morning everyone. I'd like to firstly congratulate His Eminence Cardinal Stephen Breslin on his appointment as the new Archbishop of the Archdiocese of Johannesburg and as the new Sacbc President. I'd like to inquire from His Eminence about the plans by the Sacbc in as far as our Catholic media is concerned to communicate the message of the Jubilee year. What plans have been put in place to communicate the mentions and the aspirations of the significant year in the life of the local and universal church?
I think just to make the point, firstly, that I really did not expect to be reappointed to the Office of Communications. Normally the President of the conference doesn't have another responsibility. So that came as a bit of a surprise to me. But the bishops requested that I continue, and I will certainly do so wholeheartedly. I think this is a very important question. And the way forward is for Catholic media to work together. We can't work in silos, we can't work separately. Obviously, each part of Catholic media has got its own identity, its own particular vision, its own particular way of doing things. But it's very important that we get together as Catholic media and that we try to work together. And I would certainly hope that within the coming months, coming weeks even, to try to pull together the different parts of Catholic media in order that we can discuss how best we can put out that message of the Jubilee year and to bring the challenge to people of how that Jubilee year can be lived and lived to its full in order to renew our faith.
Another question here comes from Roma Media. It's actually a message saying congratulations to the leadership of the Church for creating this platform to teach, share and clarify important matters of faith and moral in our region. So this statement is also related to Catholic media not working in silence, as you just said, Cardinal Brisbane, but then here is Catholic media that is not necessarily affiliated to the Church, but private media. How do they come on board?
Every baptized Catholic is meant to be missionary, and so we really value people who can share their faith on social media and through other means. I think sharing faith is one of the most powerful ways of helping people to discover faith in their own lives, helping people to understand that many of their experiences that they go through, they're not alone in that. And so I think, when people share their faith, it's a tremendously powerful tool of evangelization and really is to be encouraged. The important thing is that we never lose a sense of respect, of politeness and decency when we are putting something out on social media. It's very regrettable when people are talking about faith and yet they say terrible things about people who disagree with them, call them names, regard them as being blasphemous or whatever. I think that, even if people disagree with what we've put out on social media, we must always maintain the dialogue in terms of an intellectual dialogue, of using arguments rather than name-calling or trying to denigrate people. I think that's just so important, because how can we witness to Jesus Christ if we're treating people in a terrible way or if we're talking to them in a bad way? So we really value what people put out, and I can promise you every member of the faithful who puts something out on social media about their faith that is positive, that is life-giving, you are doing a great and tremendous job, and we appreciate it very much. It's for the growth of the kingdom. But let's keep our discussions decent and respectful of human dignity, even with those who strongly disagree with us. Even if people call us names, let's not get down to that level. Thank you.
Thank you, Cardinal Brisbane. There's a question from Kati Dijani, who is asking us about the participation or the involvement of the youth during the celebration of the Jubilee year.
That is critical, obviously, that our young people participate fully and actively in the activities of the Jubilee year. Again, I think it is therefore incumbent upon the leadership of each diocese to make sure that that is done. In Pretoria, for instance, our youth commission has worked out a program that's going to move from Dinari to Dinari until they also do something at the level of the Archdiocese. And they've taken the initiative, to see how as youth they can observe this Jubilee year. And I'm very encouraged, by the fact that they've even organized a trip to Rome. And last time I was counting, there were 36 of them. They've already booked tickets and accommodation. They've invited other young people from other dioceses as well. And that was their initiative, and it has, gained traction. So at the end of the day, I think it's each local church that must, encourage the youth to participate fully. I'm not sure what can be done at the level of the conference, but maybe something could be done there also to encourage and animate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Archbishop Mpako. I see we've been joined by the communications officers from Johannesburg Archdiocese and Pretoria Archdiocese. I don't know if you have any questions to ask at this moment. If you do, you can just use the microphone. Introduce yourself first.
Thanks, freelance reporter. And my one, I don't know if it has been touched because we came in a bit late, and apologies for that. But it's with regards to the recent developments in the DRC, where 10 of South African soldiers, more than 10, with 4 this morning or today, that have since lost their lives in their attacks during the peacekeeping mission. And perhaps the response from the Bishops' Conference in terms of the developments in the DRC, and perhaps if there has been any communication with your counterparts, the Bishops' Conference of the DRC, with regards to what has been happening over the past few days. Thanks.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, our hearts go out to the families of those who lost their lives, and we keep them in prayer that they will be given the strength and consolation from God at a very difficult time in their lives. And we pray too for those who lost their lives. It is always a tragedy when particularly peacekeepers are injured or lose their lives. It is simply so futile, this sort of violence that is senseless, destructive, and our admiration is certainly for those soldiers who are prepared to risk their lives in order to keep peace and to try to help countries that are suffering from strife to find a way towards peace. I think that it's also very important to say that it is our hope, and I have no knowledge of this personally, but it is our hope that our soldiers are properly equipped and that they have what is necessary in order to protect their lives. And I just put that out there without any knowledge of anything to the contrary. But it's certainly my hope that we are looking after our soldiers as best we can as a country. I'm not aware of any communication that we are having with the DRC at the moment on this issue. There will be other neighboring countries and the regional body to which the DRC belongs, which will be in communication with them. But as far as I'm aware, we don't have any contact with the DRC bishops at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Cardinal Brisbane. A question from Pretoria Archdiocese Communications Office. Please put on the mic.
Well, thank you, Materialist Mutuma. I want to ask with regard to the synod, if there are any non-negotiables, or is it entirely, does the program entirely rely on each diocese?
Well, as I said earlier, the final document issued at the end of the whole process of the synod and synodality gives, recommendations, proposals, and things that must be taken up by the local churches for implementation must be carried out in the local churches. However, there remains in Rome the Synod Secretariat, which is headed by Cardinal Mario Gresh, and that synod is charged with the responsibility of overseeing, supervising, and animating the implementation of the outcomes of the synod throughout the whole Universal Catholic Church. And it is hoped that the bodies like ours here Commission on the Synod will keep contact with the Synod Secretariat in Rome so that we update ourselves on what is being done and what is being asked of us. But at the end of the day, really, you know, the things that must be taken up are things that must be taken up by each and every member of the church. You know, beginning from the parish level, we even mentioned small Christian communities, the sodalities. We do have the structures, but we realize that those structures would need to adopt the synodal way of being and acting. And I think for us, that's where the challenge is going to be. So it's everyone who must come on board. And we are just hoping that our priests especially will somehow become enthused about this, because they are the ones who must take the lead in, you know, being catalysts, you know, that enable everyone to become part of this experience. But at the end of the day, it's all about, you know, how to be a church that is built upon the image of being people of God. By virtue of our baptism, all of us have common dignity. All of us bear equal, differentiated co-responsibility for the life and mission of the church. So as you can see from there, it's incumbent upon each and every one of us to take on this synod and synodality implementation.
Thank you, Archbishop Paco.
Father Mlungisi, Archdiocese of Johannesburg.
Please speak closer to the mic. Thank you.
Yes, it's Father Mlungisi, Archdiocese of Johannesburg. From the plenary session itself, I did hear Bishop Tapula speaking about, you know, the youth of his diocese planning to take on the pilgrimage. Has it been encouraged for priests to attend the plenary, to attend the Jubilee on, I think, is it in July? I think the one for priests is at the end of June, beginning of July. Has it been encouraged by the bishops that priests should attend that session of priests, or it is left to each and every diocese to see how they go about it?
Well, I'm not aware of any word coming from the conference in that regard. But again, you know, it comes down to the priests themselves, you know, in their local churches, showing, you know, interest and taking the initiative to do that, which I'm sure is something that would be supported, you know, by their bishops. Like in Pretoria, the youth, that was their own initiative. They are enthused about it. However, there is the question of how much priests have become enthused about it. But it would be a good thing if, you know, there was some representation, you know, of priests from this conference area going there for the Jubilee of Priests. I'm not sure what the month is now. I know that July is the youth are going there in July. So it would be a good thing, but nothing has really been organized at the level of the conference.
Thank you, Archbishop Mpako. A question about the Jubilee year and the Jubilee for Communication, which just ended recently in Rome. The Synod talks about digital missionaries and targeting specifically the youth or young adults that are missionaries or that are very learned with the digital world. Does the conference have any specific programs or plans for encouraging young people to come on board as digital missionaries?
We're not quite sure who should answer that question because it involves the synod and communication. I think that this is something that we really need to look at as I have now come back as well as communications bishop and with the department media, I think it's a very important thing that we need to look at and to see how we can introduce programs among young people in order that they can express their missionary vocation as baptized Catholics. I think there are a number of different groups within the church who are on social media and who participate in social media and put out messages quite regularly. But it's something that we could formalize a great deal more, and something that we could really devise a program about, I think. You know, we have, of course, internationally and globally quite a number of different options. You know, something like UCAT, for example, where a number of messages are put out by young people, for young people. But in terms of Southern Africa, I think it's something that we could really try to get a particular detailed program going for that. And we would rely very much, I think, Sheila, on your own expertise and your help in doing that. Thank you.
One of the questions that were put out for discussion in the small groups when we had the conversation in the spirit was precisely about that. What can we do in our conference area to reach out, you know, to the digital culture? How can we take advantage of the opportunities that are available there to evangelize through that media, while also aware of the dangers and pitfalls that are involved in that, and what steps can we take? So that was one of the questions that was dealt with. I think from there, I've not seen what the proposals were, because it was just discussed in this plenary. So from there, we can build up upon what has been suggested and see how we take that forward. But for now, we have not really had anything structured and organized in that regard. But we are now, you know, keenly aware that we need to move with speed now in doing something in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Archbishop Mpako, and thank you, Cardinal Brisbane. We are coming to the end of our live press conference. I don't know if there are any more questions. Yes, Father?
Yes, this is the last question from myself. You know, I've had interactions with many friends who are Catholics, you know, people around me who have felt like our conference is not really vocal when it comes to socio-economic issues. You know, and you find that at the ground, it is the very Catholics that are suffering there. You know, I would say, for example, the issue of water in Hammanskraal. You know, it is Catholics who stay in Hammanskraal, and they don't hear, you know, their leaders talking about that. And a lot of other things, you know, like there was the whole issue of the miners in Stilfontein. The conference has not really said anything, and this is the feeling that, you know, people have, that, you know, our leaders in the conference, they're silent in these socio-economic issues. And then when we look at our neighbors, you know, you go to the Anglican Church, they're always there voicing out their things. Is there any, you know, means of having a maybe different approach when it comes to the conference addressing socio-economic issues, you know, because it is our people who are there on the ground who feel like their leaders are not saying anything about these things.
Thanks. I'll take that question first, and then I'll invite Archbishop Tabula if he would like to also answer it. I think it's a very important question, and I think that the criticism must be taken very seriously. You know, that the Church does need to be vocal about any infringement, any attack against human dignity and human life. But I don't think it's quite true that we're not saying anything. I think that over the years the conference has put out some very, very strong statements about socio-economic issues. And it's quite true, I think, that we don't take up every issue. You know, for example, the water in Hammanskraal, but we do it more generally to say that people have a right to water, and they have the right to the infrastructure and to the basic needs that human beings need to live. And I think those things have been said and will continue to be said. I think also that it is true that a lot of what the church is doing is not always known. For example, with Stilfontein, the Bishop of Klerksdorp, Bishop Pelana, was very active in trying to give support to the rescue efforts, and he gave us regular updates on social media to the bishops. And I think, you know, that he was present at that situation to those people in need. Justice and Peace, for example, has and continues to try to give support to ex-miners in the coal mining industry who are suffering from coal dust lung diseases. And that has now gone to court where they are suing for compensation and so on. So I think perhaps one of the greatest lacks is not so much that we're not doing anything or that we're not saying anything, but that we're not communicating it properly to people. And I think that is a lacuna in our communications efforts. Thank you.
Just to add to that, I think the conference has been issuing statements, for instance, about some of the challenges that we are facing and some of the occurrences. And the former president of the conference, Bishop Sepuga, was really always on the ball when it comes to some of the issues facing us. However, those statements issued are not always found to be newsworthy by the secular media. And therefore they do not gain the publicity, that, would make people aware that we are talking. So there is a lot that is being said, but it's not always put out in the public arena by the media. So that's one thing to say. But at the same time, even if we have not issued a statement, there's a lot that we do. For instance, Hammarsdal, the water shortage there, it was dire at one moment. Our Caritas here was very involved in that. We actually bought water. Our solidarities were involved to actually not just talk, but to go there and assist people who need water. And lastly, I think maybe this needs to be said, that we discussed this thing as the Bishops' Conference. We do not want to be giving a running commentary on anything that is happening. Like maybe some people may feel they need to do that. But we issue our statements, or we say what we have to say in our own way, in our own timing. And we don't think it is really the role of the Bishops' Conference to be issuing politically or whatever a commentary on everything that is happening. But sometimes it seems our people are expecting us to do that. And we said, no, I don't think that's how we want to approach it. So there is also that, I suppose, disconnect in terms of expectation and what we think maybe we should be doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Lorika?
Rarganamalo from the Archdiocese of Pretoria. We talk about the Jubilee year and the Synod on Synodality, and it all starts at grassroots level, meaning that it's the involvement of the laity. We have the Council of the Laity at the Sacbc level, which each diocese has to be represented by 1 or 2 people. However, last year we noted that some dioceses were not represented at the AGM, and it was a concern. So I would like to ask that, was it discussed at the plenary, and what was the outcome for those, especially dioceses that do not have the laity council? Because having a member of the laity council would benefit each and every diocese to help and partner with the clergy in assisting with living out the Jubilee year, implementing Synod on Synodality. So what came out of the plenary when it comes to the involvement of the laity? Thank you.
Yes, that was touched on again, because there was an extensive report given on the Council for the Laity, and it was again noted that not all the dioceses were represented. However, I think it is something that is viewed as important that the laity be involved. But I think we are still looking for ways of galvanizing the laity at the level of the local church. As you will know, I mean, in Pretoria, I've asked you to actually go to all the meetings, important meetings of sodalities, of General Pastoral Council, listen so that you are informed about what the laity is saying, so that when you go up to the meeting of the laity council, you're actually representing what the laity is saying at the grassroots level. So I think it comes down to that, and maybe the suggestion that there be a particular day for laity that is suggested, that might go some way in galvanizing the laity, to take responsibility, not only in terms of the jubilee, but in terms of the life and mission of the church, as the Synod is calling us to be. But that is work in progress.
Thank you, Archbishop Mpako. Any more questions before we close?
Sheldon Reddy from the Archdiocese of Johannesburg. Just wanted to find out, with the Jubilee in full swing, would the conference consider having a mini World Youth Day like we did a few years back to bring everybody together under this banner of Pilgrims of Hope?
Thanks. We have discussed in the past of having another mini World Youth Day, and it's certainly something that is not going to be excluded for the future. But certainly for this year, it would not be possible logistically to organize, because it takes an enormous amount of organization of finding venues and so on. Also, what concerns us a lot is the expense of it, because, for example, the last mini World Youth Day turned out to be extraordinarily expensive, and we had to give extra funding for it. But that does not mean it's excluded for the future, and it's certainly something that we will be looking at, but not for this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Cardinal President. Any more questions? All right, on that note, Father, you have a question?
I don't know if it was asked, but what is the conference reaction to last year's metric results?
The former president, Bishop Stembele, in fact, addressed that in his presidential address. First of all, congratulating, the matriculants, for doing well by and large. But also, I think there was a question about the focus of our education. Does it really enable people to think independently, or is it more a question of just memorizing? So he raised a big question about that. That while we are happy with these results, but it still remains, a question as to how equipped are our matriculants after they've passed in this way. So that was a bigger question. But at the moment, I don't think there's an answer for it, but it is a question worth staying with.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. Thanks to all the media that came through and those who joined us online. Also, thank you to our spokesperson, Cardinal Stephen Breslin, and to Archbishop Mpako. Thank you so much for joining us on this platform. And with that said, we've come to the end of our press conference. Feel free to follow us on social media platforms. That is Southern African Catholic Bishops Conference on Facebook, and SACBC on YouTube, and of course our website, which is the Southern African Catholic Bishops Conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sheila, to you. Good, thank you.
Good, thank you.
careful